even though that 2015, 9 years ago, right? 9.5. Um, Even to this day, I'm finding myself more and more having to remind myself to let go, let go, let go.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we will be discussing the struggles and lessons learned along the journey of a seven figure entrepreneur. It's my great pleasure to welcome our guest today, Tom Kirkham with Kirkham Iron Tech. Tom, welcome to the call.
No, it's great to be here, John. It really is my pleasure. Enjoyed talking to you last week, by the way. So
Awesome. No, I did as well, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to do some more today, learn a little bit more about you, about your company. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. So, Tom, as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, please share with us your story. Where did you start from? Where have you been able to get to? Maybe share a few key lessons learned along the way. But ultimately, we just want to hear your journey.
okay, well, I'll try to keep this brief because in January the company will be 25 years old.
Ah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and but so the way the company got started is, and by the way, we are what's known in the business as a managed services provider or managed security services provider. We basically are an outsource IT company in security, cybersecurity. And the way it got started is I lost my job at a software company, and I'm in a little small town in Arkansas that's not exactly a high tech mecca with no college degree. In fact, I went to college for economics, nothing to do with, tech really. And I didn't have a job, couldn't get a job. So, as because of the dot com bust. And so I hung my own shingle. I started working out of the dining room of my house. Got on the local talk radio show as the computer guy. That evolved into an hour show, call in show every Saturday, which was probably it was the highest rated show on the weekend for the radio station. And just taking calls from people. So I built the mind share up and never, it's the go to guy, right? This is the
Right.
nerd guy. And it wasn't an infomercial. So a lot of people think I bought that airtime, but I did not. We had a deal where the meeting is interesting. It was funny is I got to know one of the the morning uh, uh, host, their morning show host, and he kind of mentored me. And I said, well, I think we can turn this into a show. And he made a comment. He says, well, how much money do you think you want for it? How much do you want to be paid?
Right.
And I said, no, I'll do it for free, and I won't advertise the company, but it's named after me, so it was just gonna go anyway. And so we meet with the station manager and the sales manager, and they go, well, how much are you going to pay us? And
Of
so I said,
course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I said, look, here's the deal. You don't pay me, I don't pay you. It won't be an infomercial. It'll be straight up. And I rarely mention the name of the company, and genuinely tried to help people with their computer problems. And I did that for about, gosh, I'm thinking over 3 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so, but it's the typical story. Many of you, if not most of you, have read the book, The E Myth.
Mhm.
And in that book, it's the myth of entrepreneurialism, in that people have an idea that entrepreneurs have this great idea for a great business. But in reality, the majority of us didn't have another choice. We started a business because we needed a job, and without knowing what all goes into it. Now, I was an executive at a software company, but you still don't really understand what it means to everything stops with you.
Right.
And so in the first few years, I was working in it as a job and putting fires out every single day. And I had a life-changing significant number of life-changing events in a very short period of time. But prior to that, I had just happened to hire a sales guy that was already a good friend of mine. He had management experience, but he also had a great personality for sales. And so I brought him on board, and he'd been there about, I don't know, a few months. And my wife came down with multiple sclerosis.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it wasn't the good kind. About 5% of the cases are untreatable, incurable, and the patient usually uh, passes away within 2 years. So I was in a situation to where all of a sudden I could not work I couldn't do my job. So I had to stay home and care for her, and going to doctors and everything else. And uh, so this friend of mine that I'd hired, he kind of took over day to day operations. And while I was taking care of my wife, I got diagnosed with a spinal infection, uh, two or three cancers, and I
Jeez.
ended up having to take care of myself as well as take care of my wife while she's pretty quickly deteriorating. And I started to postpone it for a while because some of these things they were treatable, and they just kept going through my body finding more and more things because they didn't know what was wrong with me at first. And she goes, no, you've got to take care of yourself because you're the perfect candidate for the caregiver dying before the patient. And so, needless to say, it was very hectic for that. And then she
Right.
passed away, and I'd had my final surgery. I thought everything was behind me, but then an FBI agent walked into the office and said, I'm looking for Tom Kirkham. And I said, well, that's me. And it was one of those days, like, I think it was July 3rd, 2015. So it's like the office was closed, but me and the president just happened to be there. I'd made
Mhm.
him president, by the way, in that period of time. And so he says, I'm so and so with the FBI. I'm looking for Tom Kirkham. And I said, and he goes, oh, I said, that's me. And he goes, well, you're in trouble, but not with us. And he proceeded to tell me that I was on an ISIS kill list.
What?
And that was, if you remember, in 2014-15, there were about 5 or 6 ISIS kill lists that were put out.
Right.
And all of them but this one list were law enforcement, political, military targets, Metro DC, Metro New York area, for the most part. There was one list. It was seemingly random people all over the country. I had no background. I had no reason to be targeted by ISIS or anything.
Right.
But later, after doing a lot of research over the years on it, I come to find out that it was a database breach. And that was a random list that the United Cyber Caliphate, which is the arm, they're kind of their NSA, right?
Hmm.
They had obtained this database. It creates more chaos. They recruit lone wolves, and they didn't really care. And they're tying up law enforcement. So that's how I ended up on the list.
Wow.
Now, the takeaway from all of that for the listeners out there is it forced me to begin working on my company rather than in my company,
Right.
because I couldn't do day-to-day ops. I was fortunate to have somebody to take over, and that's something you should always be doing, is working your way out of a job, especially as the owner or the CEO. You ultimately have control. You don't need to control everything. You shouldn't. The more you can delegate, outsource, whatever, the better off you're going to be. So I looked around. We might have been growing 5 or 10% a year. It wasn't enough to, get my attention.
Right.
But I said, well, it's just a job, and if I'm going to commit to it as a job, where do I need to spend my time, money, and energy? And so I got real heavy into marketing. And in our business, the main guru, especially at that time, was Robin Robbins, who's very well known in the marketing community.
Yeah.
And that's what her deal was: is teach these IT companies how to be better marketers and salespeople. So I jumped in with her, and I got mentored by all sorts of gurus in the marketing business. She would always mention her mentors over the years, over the period of time. So I went out and joined their mastermind group, and I really concentrated on working hard on the sales and marketing. And so we've grown the business up to where, we should do, well, I know we'll do over 2 million this year. And we've had real high growth rates the last 3 years, averaging right around 40%. It was
Wow.
like, yeah, it was like 27 or 28 3 years ago. Then in the mid 30s, and then last year it was 54%. It won't be quite 54% this year, but it's still a good growth rate and higher than the industry average. And the only way I could have done that was to just let go. And even to this day, even though that 2015, 9 years ago, right, nine and a half, um, even to this day, I'm finding myself more and more having to remind myself to let go, let go, let go. So, and now that means letting go of marketing,
Right.
and it's really nice you're not really growing a company until you can really master, and I don't call myself a master at it. I think I'm pretty good at it now, but when you realize your job is really delegation, understanding what the risk are of delegation, doing a risk analysis on outsourcing, and all of these other things that's going to contribute long term to the overall success of the company. You
Right.
cannot uh, you cannot do everything yourself, and if you continue to micromanage and try to do everything, and this is real typical in this business, you know, the head nerd is the guy that runs the company.
Right.
Well, I have forgotten so much about IT now that I'm the last guy you need to talk to me about computers, technical stuff. I can talk all day about marketing, but but that's not typical. It's, most of them, I think the number a few years ago was like over 80% of MSPs never get above $1 million.
Okay,
And
I can see that.
yeah, it's unfortunate. And if you're a professional, such as an accountant or an attorney, you're going to suffer from some of those same things, right? You
Yeah.
go to school, you go to law school to be an attorney, not to run a business.
Right.
And so the quicker you can get to the mode to where you're just practicing law and everything's running smooth, and it's you're happy with the growth, and personal injury, there's all sorts of specialties. But that's really nice, because even though you may have started your practice just to have a job, now you're getting to really enjoy doing that job.
Right.
And I was always a hobbyist in IT, so, and I don't tinker nearly like I used to. But it was already a passion for me. I didn't need to do it in the company.
Right.
And now we've got a whole building full of people that are a lot better at it than me.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, Tom, that's just a fantastic story and journey. Um, I love your intentionality, and I hope everybody listening paid attention to it around saying, "Hey, look, it's not always that you have this amazing idea. Like in your case, you needed a job, so you just figured something out so that you could have a job. But then you went one step further than just saying, okay, now I've provided for myself, I have a job, I'm okay. And you said, no, now I'm going to build this company. And in order to do that, I have to work on the company. I can't continually be stuck in it. Far too often, I come across business owners where, like you said, they're really passionate. They're the guru. They're the top dog, and then their company can't continue to grow because they're the bottleneck. And if everything has to be funneled through them, they're stuck. They're trapped. They're like, what? Well, now what? How do I continue to see that growth? And you figured it out early on. Where you're like, well, no, I've got to get out of the way. I've got to start working on the business, continue providing for the opportunity for it to see growth, and I have to rely on my employees. I have to give them the opportunity to rise to the occasion. I have to build them up. I have to train them, and then I have to provide them with the resources necessary to be successful. So I just love that about your story of being intentional about growing it and in that way so that you could continue to be there, but that they're running and growing it, as you're continuing to work on it instead of being sucked down in it.
Yeah, and along the way, in addition to really working hard on learning how to do marketing and sales and stuff, it became another question that I wanted to have an answer to was, who do I want to work with?
Okay.
What's our values? What kind of culture do I want to walk into the office? And because I don't even have an office in the office, I work from home, and I have for the last 4 or 5 years, because it helps me to have distance. And so I started really concentrating on learning more about management and leadership. And that leads to making the right hiring decisions or firing decisions.
Right.
But what I really wanted to do from a philosophical standpoint is I wanted to look at it from a stakeholder perspective, not just shareholder, but stakeholder perspective, which means all your customers, vendors, employees, everything.
Right.
And then I wanted to practice servant leadership, and that is another tool that you're going to instill in the company that will help you grow exponentially as well. So, for example, servant leadership means that really and truly, as the CEO in the company, my job, one of my jobs is to provide vision.
Hmm.
What are we going to be doing a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? Where's the industry going? What are the trends? From a management perspective, it's about what's the KPIs. What numbers do I need to measure to quantify our levels of success? And so that's something else we're pushing out now. So different departments will have their own set of KPIs. I have my own set,
Hmm.
typically around financials now. And cash flow is always a problem whenever you're bootstrapping and high growth.
Yep.
The mistakes are magnified. But it just depends on your level of risk acceptance. And
Right.
I'm still pretty high in spite of my age. I'm willing to take a lot more risk. And I suspect your listeners are too. But a funny thing happened on the culture side is we made it an effort to intentionally, during the hiring process, to really get to know the personality of the person and kind of how they click, because I wanted to make sure that everybody enjoyed working together, you know. But then if we found a candidate that was a good prospect, before we offered them the job, we would say, look, um, if we offer you this job, we're going to do everything in our power to make you successful in it. And so is everybody else here in the company. They are going to be here to serve you. What can I do for you today to make you better and more successful in this job or life?
Right.
And then we would offer them the job, and then that was reinforced, and it's reinforced continuously. And sometimes I'll get a little busy and I'll forget, and I'll have to go back to people and say, is there anything I can help you out with today? Grease a wheel for you. My name's on the building. I got a little, I can do something, right?
I got a little
And
pull.
yeah, yeah. Now, every once in a while, it's okay to do the Jeff Bezos thing where, you say, do I need to go get the corporate paperwork to show everybody who the CEO is? But it's kind of a running joke, is like, do I need to show you whose name's out front? Everybody knows I'm not serious about it. I
Right.
mean, I kind of am. It's kidding on the square, right?
You're right. Right.
Uh, but ultimately, it's really and truly, we all believe we're there to help each other. And so sometimes I'll go 2 or 3 days, not even go into the office. But whenever I do, almost without exception, I see one person grabbing another one. And it doesn't matter rank, title, anything. Hey, I need a little help. Can you take a look at this for me? I mean, almost every day that happens. And it's something that Peter Drucker said. And you read any business management leadership books, Peter Drucker's a guru. He had a quote that says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Very few words, but there's a lot of power in that. And what he means is tactical execution, strategic planning. You can do it with just that. Okay. You better not make any mistakes, though. The processes have to be perfect almost. But if you've got a great culture, that's the foundation for any tactical execution or strategy, like a military operation.
Right.
It'll fill in so many gaps on the strategic objectives and what you're trying to accomplish. and it makes everybody just feel so much better about coming into work. I'm not saying everybody wakes up every morning and is going, I can't wait to get into the office. But we look for people that are getting burned out. We require them to take their paid time off, and because we're conscious of that. And I hate it when somebody has to work on the weekends. I mean, I get it. I worked at a job most of my life, or well, half. Oh, well, I'm getting old, but the first part of my adult life, anyway, I got it, and I got burned out too. And
Yeah.
just little things like that really go a long way. And it's not, sometimes we'll get somebody new, and it'll come up with something like, okay, we got to get to profitability, and everybody understands why, right? And somebody else says, yeah, so you make more money, and I go, no, no, money is a byproduct. I that's not my scorecard. My scorecard is everybody to be happy, and our customers are getting the best possible service and support that we can possibly deliver. And we don't measure ourselves against competition. We are the competition. It's that relentless pursuit of perfection
Yeah.
that you won't ever get perfect. But by pursuing perfection, you'll achieve excellence. And so it's like our recipe. It's the company's recipe for success. And we've had just more recently one of our really large clients, the CIO. We find companies of all sizes outsourcing now. So the
Hmm.
CIO just happened to make a comment to the president one time, and he goes, I just love coming here. You guys are just so nice and friendly to each other. And that's when your culture is making an impact on your clients as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of clients, when we're talking to prospects, we understand that if a prospect doesn't share at least some of our values and philosophy, that they're probably not going to work out. And we have to be prepared not to bring them on board as a client, you know. And you can look at it any way you want to, is it profitable? Even if it's profitable, sometimes it's not worth it. And you got to be willing to make sacrifices like that, because if you take on clients that drive you crazy or drive everybody crazy, and you're just keeping them for cash flow, you need to do some reflection on that. And maybe you don't want to fire them, but maybe you just want to find a replacement for them. You
Yeah.
know, instead of just add. Sometimes you just got to trim the tree, right?
Yep.
Or down here in the South, it'd be pulling the suckers off, right? Those little sprouts on the tomato plants that, oh, that's just sucking energy out. I want the tomatoes to get bigger.
Yep.
So, but really, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Really is what lays the foundation for all these other philosophies and everything that we follow. And,
Yeah.
this isn't any revelation. It's a lot of reading. I've read a lot of biographies for different, famous people like Jobs and Andy Grove and Elon. I've spent time with Elon Musk in shareholder meetings, and you get to see how they think. And Andy Grove was a notorious micromanager. He would sit out in the parking lot and make notes of when people arrived to work. The
Oh wow.
CEO of Intel did that. And we all heard the stories about Jobs being so mercurial, but he also had a fantastic vision. And so I think the key to it is you got to understand yourself a lot too, you
Yep.
know, and don't get caught up in ego. Be quick to admit mistakes. Always seek advice, and that's what you hire them for. They're 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 your counsel in a way. Everybody in the company. I've got at least a half a dozen people that know my customers better than I ever will,
Right.
and that's the main deal in a service business, especially one that's under contract. And the nature of this business is you learn more about the company than any other vendor that they have. You know that company better, or almost as good as the employees themselves know that company, because we're talking to somebody in that company every single day.
Yep.
And it's pretty satisfying when things are going well. Now, my ops guy, my president, who's also COO, to him, it's another fire I got to put out. But
Right.
but that's his job, and he's pretty good at it, and he's a good manager, and yeah, that's kind of where we are. And so we're trying to take it to the next level. There's a shift at 1 million. There's another big shift getting to 5 million,
Yep.
and then 10 million, and of course everybody's got their little milestones.
Yeah.
And then an added part is, in this business, there's a lot of merger and acquisitions going on, a
Right.
lot of consolidation. And how do we best position that? What's my exit strategy? And we believe so much in supporting everybody. I didn't want to be one of those owners that just said, okay, I'm selling the company, I'm taking it all, and I'm not really going to care what happens to everybody. Right. And I know that in the case of an acquisition, some jobs are probably going to go, you
Right.
know. And so we initiated about 3 years ago a stock option plan. So they've been granted options that are really only valuable in the case of a liquidation event. Now, liquidation events can occur a lot of different ways besides just an outright acquisition.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure there was a safety net there that was legally binding, that the paperwork really does mean something. It's not I can just revoke it on a whim, and that gives especially the younger people, uh, well, it doesn't really matter how old they are, but it gives them a safety net.
Yeah.
That, okay, well, I don't have a job anymore, but I got $50,000 out of the deal or whatever it is. So and so what does that mean? That means we walk the talk, right?
Yep.
It's not. It's you really got to believe it. Now that may not be good for your company and your personality, but whatever that is, you need to know what it is, right?
Right.
You need to know how that culture is going to look and feel, both internally, externally. That comments all the time from our clients and testimonials. You can just see it. Just they just love it. They get it. May not agree with it, but or all of it, but they get it.
Yeah. No, love that. So it as you're sitting here describing this, I'm saying, man, you're the perfect example of what we actually try to teach here at Elite, where we say, hey, as a leader, the elite leadership model is this. It's as a leader, you have three jobs. You're to set the vision, you're to build the team, and you're to deliver results. Now, we look at vision a little bit different than some people because we say, hey, vision's threefold. Vision is purpose, which is why we do what we do, values, which is who we are and how we show up, and then a mission and mission goals. A mission is a destination we're going to go after and we're going to get to. So in the next 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're going to be very clear on, hey, this is the date that we're going to achieve this by, and then the mission goals are, hey, these are the metrics associated with that, so that we know that when we've arrived, without a shadow of a doubt, we know we've arrived, right? And then as you set the vision, you build the team, and you deliver results. The center of all three of those is this idea or concept of care. You got to care about the purpose, and you got to care about the individual. You're just such a great example of this, as you just described what it is you're doing. Is you're saying, no, I care about my employees. I care about this culture that we've developed. I've worked really hard to let them know, even as an early stage, when they're first coming in, saying, hey, we help each other out. We are here to serve one another so that we can ultimately serve our customers, which in turn serves our purpose as a company, right? And you've established this culture, and then you've even gone a step further and said, and because I care about you, I'm going to put something in place that's legally binding to say, hey, when the next stage comes, there's going to be something there for you, which is so much further, far and beyond than most people are willing to go. And I love your intentionality, and I hope everybody was listening when Tom said this, because when you said this, Tom, you said specifically, hey, you got to figure out for yourself what works. And as you figure it out for your company, it does this amazing thing. It acts like a magnet where you're actually attracting future employees and future customers because they see what you're doing and they like it. But it does the same thing that a magnet does when you flip it on its side, is it also detracts people that are like, yeah, that's not me and I don't agree with that. And then you took it a step further in the deliver results stage, which is awesome, is you said, and we have to be able to be okay with being intentional about who we choose to serve. As a company, at first, when we're first, as you're first building, it's really easy to get stuck in this rut of, hey, I'm just going to say yes to everybody because I'm trying to make money. But then you get to a point where you have to say, yeah, I need to identify my ideal customer, and I need to make sure that they're aligned with our values as a company and what we're trying to accomplish. Because, yeah, like you said, it's not about the money. You could have a customer or client that you're working with that, sure, profit margins are really good working with this customer, but everybody in the company hates working for them and hates working with them. And man, it's a draw and a drag every time that we have to work another project for this client or this customer. And man, if you get real clear about who it is that you want to serve, what problem is that you're going to solve for them, and that they're in line with what you're trying to accomplish and who you are as an organization, oh man, the impact is huge.
It's exponential.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first and foremost, congratulations on just doing a great job building a fantastic organization, because that's exactly what we try to do here at Elite, is we try to help people get to the stage where you're at, where we try to show them, hey, look, if you take the time to establish this culture and you set your vision, and then as a leader, you're constantly setting that vision and you're talking about it and you're working it and you're building this team and you're delivering the results, man, it's awesome the things that you can go after and accomplish. And if you skip one of those steps, it's really hard.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not some you can teach yourself all these things through groups like yours. I learned an amazing amount of management and leadership just by reading HBR.
There you go.
You get that newsletter every day, and they have a list of books, and so what is $100 a year or something. These are these are some of the best, or it is the best management and leadership content that's easy to digest, easy to read. It makes perfect sense. And for me, it was like throwing in some biographies and starting to read all these other Drucker stuff, and the E Myth, and I don't even know how many books I've read on it, but it's trainable.
Yeah,
It's another deal. He's a born leader. I don't know that I believe that. I don't know that there probably are some born leaders, but chances are maybe at an early age their father or some other mentor, for lack of a better word, they just wanted to model themselves out, and as they got to be an adult, they did have these what appeared to be natural leadership techniques, uh, but they actually probably picked it up by watching or reading or whatever else.
yeah,
And but you have to be intentional, deliberate
yep,
to work on that. Don't expect it to come overnight. I'm still working on it.
yeah,
I have a coach. I mean, you know, sometimes another set of eyes, an
yep,
outside perspective makes all the difference in the world. And if you're going down that route, or you're in your group, John, uh, don't be afraid to admit mistakes.
absolutely.
That's the quickest path. It's like Ryan Holiday says, the obstacle is the way, or something like that. If you're the obstacle because you made this mistake, let's either fix it or make sure it doesn't happen again, or both.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and you can't do that if you're not willing to say, "Yeah, I screwed that up," right?
Yep,
And it's harder for other people to do it, but I'm hoping I'm setting an example, especially for the management team, those that I want to come up and take over, that they're going to get to the point where they're going to be comfortable with saying, "Yeah, I screwed that up. Yeah,
Yeah.
there, we're all human, guys. You
Yeah.
know, guys
Exactly.
and girls. We're that I've known, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of small business owners as friends for years and years and years, and that's a big help too. And the
Absolutely.
way I did it, just to kind of tell you where I just met them all as beer drinking buddies.
There
You
you
know,
go.
but it was intentional because I just started my business, and old school is join the country club and or a town club, and that's not my gig. I'm not a social butterfly or fancy people, right? Uh, nothing wrong with that. But I'm the people I felt most comfortable with was going, oh wow, I'm sitting here at a table with 6 or 8 business owners here. Some of them extremely successful, but we're all just regular people.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, Dale, I know you got a jet. Okay, that's cool. But but then you start, hey, we got health insurance is starting to be a problem. How are you guys doing it? So whatever methods you want to use, like get in a mastermind group or like a group like yours, whatever works for you,
Exactly.
whatever gets you to that. Another good book is the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
You ever read that, John?
I have not. I've heard
I'm,
of it, but I haven't read
okay. Well, I'm going to give you the takeaway from the book that I got. A lot of
it. Okay.
people will read that, and it's like a get rich quick scheme, a lot of money for nothing. Like the Dire Straits song, "Money for Nothing."
There you go.
But really and truly, what the point of the book that Tim was making, or made with that book, and subsequently Tools of Titans, which is a fantastic book. Tim decided in order to master something, he needed to learn it at as shortest amount of time as possible.
Okay.
So he was a national, I think it was jujitsu champion in Japan. And he had only learned jujitsu in 6 months and became a national champion.
Oh wow.
He went to the number 2 guy in the world to train him because he wanted to learn it and do it as fast as humanly possible. And that's what his kind of deal is that if you really want to master marketing or you want to master management, what's the quickest and most efficient way to go about doing it that matches your own personality?
Right.
And that's the same thing about surrounding yourself with people that can help you out, and then you got to pay it back. You have to. It's not all take.
Yep.
It's uh, uh, Joe Polish has got a saying. I think it's the name of his last book. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's really about giving. So the more you give, the more you tendency to get back. And
Yeah.
and that's, I don't mean it to be some woo woo, mystical karma thing. But one of our interview questions is, do you consider yourself lucky? And what we find is people that consider themselves lucky do things in their life to introduce better and more opportunities for good things to happen to them. So this isn't a religion or anything like that. So if they go, nah, I don't really feel lucky, well, there's things that we can't catch about your personality that's probably driving bad things to happen to you.
Right.
And as much stuff that happened to me in that 2 year window of pure hell.
Yeah.
My doctor looked me straight in the face. He said, "I've never had a patient with as much tragedy in such a short period of time as you." I looked at it as an opportunity to learn, to grow as a person, to really understand what some of life is about. I don't know it all, and I'm not even close. Still figuring that out. But it's that foundation, man. It really and truly is that foundation. It's not just tactical execution. It's not getting to 30% bottom line. That those are all well and good, and you can measure and you can make it happen. But what's that foundation look like when you make that leap? from 1 million to 5 million in revenue, or 50 million or 500 million in revenue.
Right.
And are you willing to step down? You really need to work yourself out of a job each and every day, and that puts you in a much better personal position to do whatever else you want to do.
Right.
So my people are coming to me and hey, what's your exit strategy look like? And so, okay, we're going to work on that this year. We've got a retreat in Honolulu in December, and that's one of the main topics of that retreat is to look at my exit strategy. And this frees up time for me to pursue what's my next chapter in life. And I've already written a couple of books and available at Amazon.
There you go.
They're both bestsellers, and they're written for the layperson. They're not. It's about cybersecurity and hacking, but they were written for small business owners
Perfect.
and high net worth individuals. But I'm also working on a TV project. I do paid speaking gigs, and that allows me to travel, which I love to do.
There you go.
And and so I just gradually working myself from one job to the next, and who knows? It's like I hope I have enough life time to be very successful at those projects as well. And I'm
Yeah.
building teams in those projects. I've got my chief marketing officer is working on the TV and books deal, and she does all my. She's basically my agent and my production assistant,
Wow.
and she's real young. And we talk about it. I said, okay, you know, here's what I'm thinking. How does this fit in with your life? Because I want her to be happy, regardless of whether it's with me, with the company. Sometimes we have people that say, "Yeah, I don't know that I like working at an MSP. I think I want a corporate IT job." Hey, that's great. Uh, what can we do to help? I understand
Love it.
completely. Yeah. Well, you don't want somebody there that's they're not cut for,
Right.
right? They're not built for it. And it's a world of difference between a corporate IT job and an MSP,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah. And some people are just wired for corporate jobs. And I don't, uh, there's a lot of good things about that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and too often people get hung up on that, and they say, well, that's hard to lose people, but reality is, hey, look, just because this isn't a good fit for them doesn't mean that they're not an amazing, wonderful person. It just means that this particular culture isn't in line with what they need. And as a business or an organization, we have this awesome opportunity to help them find their ideal situation. They helped us while they were here. Let's now help them move on to their next thing. And I had a mentor of mine tell me one time, he said, look, so many times people get upset or hurt when somebody leaves their organization. And he said, but in my mind, as a leader, my job is to help them continue to grow and develop into the best version of themselves. And
yeah,
if that happens to be in line with what we're trying to accomplish here at our business, awesome. We'd love to keep you. If not, awesome. I still succeeded as a leader because I helped you on to your next stage in life. So
I,
yeah,
I've said,
getting that,
I have
that
said,
mental mind shift, right?
yeah, I've said those exact words to people, you know, and you know what happened? It pays dividends, right?
Yes.
And it's that are you a lucky person, right? That's part of what makes luck is pay it pays dividends. We've had people. We hired back a guy, and some people say I never hire ex-employees. Well, I think that's a bad. You can't. Nothing is definite. Okay, 100%.
Right.
Uh, but if they leave on good terms and you genuinely like working with them and they like working there, why not? We had a guy that left 4 years ago to work for AT&T. Nothing against AT&T, but he had a good job, and I didn't
Mhm.
blame him a bit. We were a lot smaller. We couldn't pay him enough, and he got a better opportunity. He tried, I think, the third time to come back, and finally it made sense. And we put him in a sales position, and he's thriving. He's I, he's so enthusiastic. But he tried all just about every year of those 4 years to try to figure out a way to get back at the company.
There you
Then we
go.
had another guy that had a corporate IT job, and out of the blue, nobody knew him or anything. He applies for a job, and you had a corporate job. typically doesn't work out well here. And he goes, I know, I want to work for an MSP and see that side of the business. Hired him. It's great.
Okay.
So, and just don't,
You never know, right?
if any of you are like what I was 20 or 30 years ago, don't get caught up that you think, well, this is all a bunch of woo woo stuff, and touchy feely and all of that. Don't get caught up in that, because it works. I promise you, it works. And yeah, it feels good too. That's
Oh,
great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, Tom, thank you so much again for taking the time to be on the show today. What a fantastic journey you've been on, and what an amazing bunch of little nuggets that you've shared. I hope the listeners who listen into this podcast are really paying attention to the different things that you've said, because you really have just presented so many wonderful nuggets today, with little insights of things that people should be doing and ways that they can just make things work better and easier by being intentional about a few different things. And when you do that, man, you really you start to see the benefits of your labors in a way that you never could otherwise. So, no, really appreciate you. For all those of you who are listening in, if you really like what Tom's all about, and want to learn more about him or his company and want to reach out to him, Tom, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. The easiest is probably go to tomkirkham.com.
Okay.
And there's a contact form where you can see all my side gigs. And but if you're interested in any sort of IT or cybersecurity, and we take care of people all over the country and a few other places internationally, kirkhamirontech.com, and just fill out the contact form. And if it's to me, I'll get it real quick. So we know to route different interests to the right people, so we get it done, get it taken care of.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here, folks. I hope you paid attention. Those are the best ways to reach out to Tom. If you have any thought of, maybe I should reach out, just do it. Take the time, reach out to him. You won't regret it. And as always, if you heard something in today's show that you're like, I really ought to start doing that, please take the time to be intentional about taking action. Because it's not until we take action that we start to see things continue to progress and move forward. Sometimes we take action on something, you're like, yeah, well, that wasn't the best step. But you know what? That's just a learning opportunity. Thomas Edison said, hey, people asked him, you failed over and over again making the light bulb. He said, no, I didn't. I learned 100 ways not to make a light bulb. Right. So
Right.
let's
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's make sure that we take the intentional step to make action. And if you heard something on today's show and you're like, you know what, I know somebody that could benefit from this, please share it. Let's share as much value and spread it as far as we can. Well, this has been another great episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. Again, Tom, thank you for being on the show today. And for everybody who's listening in, thank you. And till next time, take care.